Welcome to Metaphysical Soul Speak. I'm your host, Elena Fox Starks. Hey guys, I hope you're doing well today. For some weird reason, I felt like it was Saturday all day long. I stayed in my pajamas like it was Saturday and then realized it's actually Tuesday. So, I don't know if you guys have been experiencing time slips. I've been having a lot of them for the past few months where sometimes you just feel like you have a memory that's absolutely solid and then you remember one or two extra versions of the same exact story. And it's not like you don't have a good memory, it's just that timelines have collapsed and you're literally remembering 3 different timelines. So, it's just, I don't know, I've had a couple instances lately that I'm just like, wait a minute. When I was trying to remember my story for tonight, I remember literally 3 different versions. When I tell you my story in the second half, I'm going to tell you it the way that I believe I remembered it the first time. But I remember the guys wearing all white. And I'm going to describe what I remember. But I also remember them wearing white sweaters and blue jeans. And I also remember them wearing black suits with a white shirt and a black tie. Like the Blues Brothers. And I literally cannot separate the memory. And I know my memory isn't suffering because of something that's going on with me medically. I know I'm not crazy. Well, I mean, says every crazy person ever, but I do know that people all over the world are suffering from memory issues because of the Mandela effect is becoming stronger. And it will continue to do so between now and the next, May. And also because the magnetic lines, the magnetic North Pole shift, the polar shift is affecting our memory. It's also why a lot of birds have lost their navigational abilities and died in the past year, and also why whales have beached themselves hundreds at a time. Because their navigation systems are screwed because the polar it's just because the polar shift, the magnetic energy of the planet is crazy. And speaking of the Schumann resonance is only been around 25 hertz in several peaks today. Not too terrible. It wasn't calm, and we did have spikes, but they weren't huge. They weren't the 40 hertz huge that we had been seeing last week. And so I've been mentally more clear, I think, as a result of not having it shoot way up. But physically, I'm energetically very, I need a lot of rest. Little food, but a lot of rest and a little more water than usual. That's just what I've been for 3 days. I've been like this. And I'm not the only one. I found a new light worker on the internet last night, and he was saying the same thing. He just needing to sleep a lot, in the last few days. But he also has a video I watched about being weird. And he said, people call you weird because you're different, because you believe different. You talk about things that are quote unquote weird. And he said he used to feel bad about himself because of it. Now he wears it as a badge of honor. So I wanted to bring that up. I thought that was cool. I'm going to see if I can't get him on the show too. I've been contacting a few people. Metaphysical Mike said that he wants to make it a reality that he is on my podcast. He is a light worker, and he has his own channel called Metaphysical Mike on YouTube. He also has a podcast on Anchor that he hasn't started yet. I don't know if he has another one somewhere else. I gotta find out, but he'll be on the show soon. Matthew David Hurtado and I are still working out the details of what we're actually going to talk about. He's definitely coming on the show. I just don't know when. So we got some good things coming up. I wanted to let you know that today is a Mercury Retrograde. It started today. Virgos and Geminis are usually more affected by the Mercury retrograde. Be extra cautious and double check and triple check all itineraries before setting out. Check your suitcase to make sure you have everything if you're going to go on a journey. Check everything in your car, check your points, check your alternator, check your gas tank, check everything. And that actually ties into what I'm going to talk about in the later half, by the way. I'm going to talk about angel help and automobiles. I have two personal stories, one from me and one from my mother and my grandmother, from a long time ago, like 20 years ago, what happened to them. And actually, it's about 20 years ago what happened to me, too. Is about the same time, actually. So now that I'm noticing that, that's weird. It was probably within 3 or 4 years of each other. I think theirs happened actually 23 years ago. Anyway, so funny that I'm mentioning this on Mercury retrograde that tends to affect vacations and travel. I listened to an amazing episode of Sri and Kira today. They are people that live here in Cuenca, just outside of the city. I have yet to meet them. They are light workers and ascended as far as they've been living in 5D for like 20 years. They have been only focused on this spiritual stuff like 100% of the time for the past probably 2 decades, maybe more. They're married, happily in love. I believe they're twin flames. I don't know if they've ever mentioned that. Anyway, I want to mention them because they are another facet of the light workers. Not that we have a union, but, light workers union. They use a lot of words that are in Hindu spirituality. So they say a lot of words in Hindi, although their first language, of course, is English. They're from the United States, but they live here. They live here, and they've been here for a long time. And I listened to an amazing episode today in which they bought the land here in Ecuador that they live on now, and had an opportunity, and they had to go over to India right away. They went to India, and when they were there was a special mountain, which I cannot even pronounce the name of right now. But they saw this mountain, and they got all this energy. And they got the opportunity to climb that mountain and to stay for a couple hours. Well, something happened, and they ended up spending the night on that mountain and gathering up all the energy. And they said it was really incredible. And then they came back to their land a week or 2 later. I can't remember now. Memory issues. Sorry about that, guys. But they came back here, and the fog had lifted, the clouds had lifted, and they noticed that on their property that they didn't know before was a mountain that looks identical to the mountain they just came from in India. Pretty cool, right? The way the universe works. And they said the energy of that mountain was exactly the same as the mountain they saw in India. It had the same vibe, and they were like, whoa. It's pretty cool when stuff like this happens. But I hope I get to meet them someday. I would love to have them on the show. They are really busy with their own podcast, their own website, their YouTube channel. So they even have an app, Sri and Kira, S-R-I, that's how you spell Sri, and Kira is K-I-R-A. So I highly recommend them. They're very fun. They're very interesting. They're very much in love, and they just permeate. All the energy around them is all just solid love and happiness and giddiness and joy. They're really cool people. So very different. I mean, when you look up the words hippie trippy or hippie dippy, they're not dippy people though. They're very intelligent and in tune with the universe. But you know, they're usually wearing robes, and they have long hair, and they're wearing the beads, you know. It's like, so don't let any of that fool you. They're not people pretending to be spiritual by wearing the clothes. They're literally walking their walk. They're talking their talk. I could tell. I mean, they're really genuinely here to help humanity. So something that they said in their episode today that I watched, it's from a few days ago, but I watched today. They said that this Mercury retrograde is different than usual. It is in all watery signs. It's probably just what the doctor ordered for this Virgo. You know, my chart is all earth, so sometimes I guess it's making mud, I don't know, but sometimes I need the watery, you know, more imaginative energy to take over. But this is a time, this particular Mercury retrograde, I can't remember how long it's going to last. I think 3 weeks, maybe 4. Sometimes they last up to 5. I honestly don't. I didn't even look it up. But this is a time for you to reinvent yourself. And I think it's imperative that you reinvent yourself in the image of who you want to be in the 5D, in the 5th dimension. Do not reinvent yourself in the 3rd dimensional world. You know, so do what you've always wanted to do. This is the time to manifest super, super, super fast. Don't start brand new projects you had never thought about before. This is the time to plan. Reinvent yourself, but plan it out. If you want to start something brand new, wait until Mercury retrograde is over and Mercury is back direct in the sky. What a Mercury retrograde period is basically Mercury does not go backwards. It's just, it appears to us to go backwards in the sky because of like its trajectory and our trajectory. And I'm not even qualified to discuss astronomy really, but except for I know that every time my entire life I started a brand new project during Mercury retrograde, when Mercury went direct, I failed miserably. And I have a tendency to always start my new projects on Mercury retrograde. I've started new relationships, I've started new friendships, I've started new jobs, I've started new businesses. Anything and everything that I've ever started on Mercury retrograde in 3 to 5 weeks is over. Just done. One time I started a new job during Mercury retrograde and I called my friend and I said, it's okay because I didn't really want to work more than 5 weeks. I just wanted to gather enough money to pay rent for the summer. And I can take the rest of the summer off and go traveling. Yeah. And she said, that's actually good planning. That's smart. So I did. I started right on Mercury retrograde, first day. 5 weeks later, they fired me. I can't even remember why now. It was like, I didn't get along with someone at the job, or they found, it was a temporary job and they fired me and hired somebody else permanently from within the company. I think this is what happened. But I worked a lot at temporary jobs. I put myself through college with temporary jobs. My mom helped me a little bit with money too, and in the end, the federal government, I got loans for 2 years. So, okay. That's something that you need to know, though. You don't want to reinvent yourself in the 3rd dimension and then re-energize that lower part of yourself, because you'll be stuck. The end of the Kali Yuga, which I had mentioned before, is on March 21st. Everyone's saying it. All the psychics, all the people with I don't know, Indian calendars. I don't know. Is there a calendar? A 26,000 year perpetual calendar? Does that exist? Probably not. But people that have, I don't know, connections to the Great Divine and the calendar people that have invented our universe, they all agree. March 21st is it, end of the Kali Yuga. We are going to be bombarded with light, a lot of light. So be prepared. Be prepared to accept it. Drink a lot of water. Eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. On the 20th and the 21st, probably for the next week after that, it's going to be a big time. Now I'm talking about it and I'm getting really feeling so much energy, so hot. Ugh. Anyway, just want to let you know, guys, about that, because it doesn't mean that like a portal's going to open up and we're going to just beam off the planet and we're going to be gone forever. But the energies can be pretty strange. And we're going to have to let go of our physical bodies at some point as far as the majority of the density in our bodies. Doesn't mean you have to focus on losing weight or anything like that. But try to maybe be more in touch with your spiritual side and less in touch with materialistic goals. And I mean, as far as like, you know, if you're in the middle of your career like I am, you know, I'm trying to start it. I'm launching a career during all this. Better late than never, I suppose. I just need to be able to support myself in 18 months with this podcast and with my books. So I'm in the middle of this right now, but I think the message here is to focus your mind on spiritual stuff. Don't focus on, you know, getting like a brand new watch and, you know, $1,000 worth of new clothes this week, or, you know, having the hottest BMW on the block. I mean, the materialism, that's just rampant materialism just for materialism's sake, probably isn't what you should focus on anymore. Don't focus on the news. Stop watching the news. Stop watching the negative crap on TV. Stop watching negative stuff on Netflix and Hulu. You know, don't watch violent stuff anymore, or dark stuff, or stuff with dark themes and dark messages where people are in fear or in danger, because it's affecting our minds, it's affecting our psyches. We all are one, so with, you know, when one person watches it, it can affect all of us, or at least the people right around you. So do yourself a favor and focus on positive stuff. I started watching TV shows about moms with babies trying to make life work, you know. You know, it's like weird. It's like not at all the typical thing for me to watch. Typical for me would be to watch Charmed or The Misfits, which I love. I love that show. You know, and also comedy. I love comedy, you know. In my past, it's always been about Frasier or Seinfeld or Friends. I've already seen the Friends from beginning to end like 2 or 3 times on Netflix. And Netflix just spent $100 million to keep that on Netflix like forever. So like they literally own like the right to air it. It will never not be on Netflix now. So if you love Friends, I have one friend in he's in Egypt, and actually that's how he learned English, is watching Friends, which I think is pretty freaking cool. And so like it's funny because all of his references are like from the 90s. He like stuff he knows about American pop culture is only from like that era, so it's kind of funny, but yeah, he's a pretty cool dude. I'm glad that he learned English, and what a cool way to learn it. But I don't know, I just started watching like more rom-com type movies, which, you know, normally isn't me. But I'm still watching Star Trek, and no one's going to take that away from me, because Star Trek is the bomb still. Said every nerd everywhere. Anyway, I'm going to take a quick break, and when I come back... Oh, wait, oh yeah, there's one thing okay, before I take a quick break, I actually forgot. I mentioned that Indie goes, INDIE, goes to school, like GOES, Indie goes, software, on in the Play Store, for Android, probably the iStore, probably all of the stores for your apps. They have a free app that has like 24 maybe now decks of oracle cards or intuitive guidance cards or whatever you want to call them. They're not tarot cards, but they're like that, like angel cards and stuff. They have a whole bunch of decks. Well, today, right before I started recording, they added a new deck. And it is like they know me because the new deck is called the Empath Guidance Cards. Well, I haven't downloaded it yet, but I'm about to. As soon as I'm done, as soon as I publish this show, I'm going to download it because it looks interesting. In there, they have a folder app, and that's the one you want to get because the folder app has all of the decks of cards, and you can unlock each deck for 7 days for free. And nothing's automatic. So, at the end of 7 days, if you don't like it, whatever, delete it, forget it. But if you like the deck, they're all in range from $5.99 to $6.99. And then you unlock them and you have them forever. And in the future, if you get a new phone, you can unlock them from the new phone and they keep records, and it's all cool. It's all good. As long as you have the same email, I think it's what the secret is. But they have some neat card decks, and it's been helpful for meditation. It's been helpful for clarification when I connect with my angels and my guides and and God and my higher self. And then I ask, please help me with this. And I, go into a meditative mode, and then I, clear out all my negative energy, and I fill my body with white light, surround myself with the golden light of the sun, the way that in the sun, our solar brother episode I have an example of a sun meditation that the sun directly gave me. So go check that out. Not a lot of people have listened to that. I changed the name of it today, hoping that more people would be interested. I wrote meditations directly from the sun. This got to be interesting more than how I worded it before. Anyway, in this software, you meditate and you pray and you connect to everybody, and then you push the screen and all the cards come up, and you have to pick the cards intuitively. And I use kinesthesiology for that. It just works better for me. But they have all kinds of decks. They've got the Archangel Michael deck, the Spirit Oracle. They have a deck about self-love. They have another one called Positive Energy. They have one called Soul Wisdom. And one that I can't wait to check out is called Fairy Tales. So it's got to be something for everyone. The Ocean deck is really good. The Ocean Oracle, at least, I don't know, I'm kind of a mermaid secretly. So I think that's, for me, it's, why that one connects with me. But I think for watery signs, it would connect with you as well. But if you love the ocean, it's actually a pretty special deck. But the art is beautiful. I like looking at the art, and I think looking at art every day actually raises your vibration and your energy, brings you a little closer to heaven. And at least at the very minimal, it brings the corners of your lips closer to heaven, as Robin Williams says. As long as you could bring your mouth a little closer to heaven by smiling, it's something. So anyway, I'm going to take a quick break, and when I come back, we're going to talk about angels and automobile help. So stick around, and I hope you enjoy what I have prepared for you. These two stories they're pretty incredible for me. So, all right, I'll be right back. Hey, you. Have you ever thought about having your own podcast like me? Was it even a New Year's resolution? For me, it sure was. But as I've been looking into this for months, I was daunted. There's so many questions I had. When I was trying to get this off the ground, I was wondering, how do I record the episode? How do I get it across all the platforms? How do I get my podcast on Apple Podcasts when I don't even have an iPhone? How do I get it onto Spotify and all the other places? How do I get people to listen? And how do I make money from my podcast? How do I edit it? Oh my God, I had all these questions, and I was so confused until I discovered the simple answer is Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free, and it is ridiculously easy to use. And now Anchor can match you with great sponsors too, so you can get paid to podcast. All you need to do is record it. You don't have to go out and look for people to advertise on your show. They help you. So basically what I like about podcasting is I don't have to have a video of myself. You don't know if my hair is dirty or if I'm still in my pajamas or even if I'm wearing makeup. Haha. And it's so easy. I could do this from the comfort of my own home in my living room using this amazing app right from my cell phone. So easy, right? So if you've always wanted to start your own podcast and make money, by the way, doing it, please go to anchor.fm/start. That is anchor.fm/start to join me and the diverse community of podcasters that are already using Anchor. Again, that's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast, and I can't wait to favorite you. Woohoo! Let's be broadcast podcast buddies. I'll see you there. All right, guys, I'm back. And now my allergies, of course, are kicking up. It's weird. I just swept my room like 3 or 4 days ago, and it's like I haven't swept in like 3 months. I don't know if we had a bunch of wind. I don't know what happened. And it might be one of these timeline hopping things I've been going through. You know, it's like my house was relatively clean, and then all of a sudden 3 days later, it's like no one's cleaned it in 3 months. And it's like, what? Am I really that out of touch, or did I just hop into a new timeline? Or I don't know. Part of this Mercury Retrograde I didn't mention earlier is people will lie a lot more during this time, inventing things as they go along, reinventing things as they go along, not remembering stories, and memory issues. So I was affected last week by, remember when I said Cincinnati, or I said Cleveland instead of Cincinnati. You know, sometimes I've been getting geography places wrong. I told you guys about the shows I was watching, and I said one was in California, and it wasn't. I found out it was in Toronto, and I'm like, I don't even think there was any clues in the whole show that was from Toronto. And then another show I said I was watching that was in Australia maybe, or England. It's actually filmed in New South Wales, I found out today. Like, no wonder I couldn't place that accent. And I'm not reinventing anything. I'm not lying. It's just a memory thing. But expect more of that in the next week or 3, because it's just part of this Mercury retrograde, and when coupled with all the light waves of Ascension that we're being bombarded with. So I'm going to talk to you guys now about, Heaven's AAA. For those of you who are not from the United States, AAA is a service that you can get. And last time I got it, it was magical number. I think it was like $77 a month back when I had it last. But when you have AAA, what happens is if you break down, you call them and they will give you up to 5 free tows a year, and they'll tell you to the nearest gas station or garage or automobile shop to have your car fixed. So it's pretty cool. And they also will bring you gasoline if you've run out of gas. If you've accidentally locked your keys in the car, or your baby and keys in the car, they will come and help you with that as well. So AAA is like a super handy thing. It's one of those things, it's not insurance, but I think that the company does sell insurance. But just to have them for the roadside assistance service is 100% worth it. I mean, for years and years and years and years, I had them, paid for them, and I think I only used them twice. But those were 2 really serious times that I really needed them. So it was worth all that money just to keep that up and having the AAA card in my pocket. But that got me like discounts at different places. It was like, it's a cool service. So if you guys are in the US and don't have it, go get it. I mean, if you have a car, if you don't have a car, you don't need it. Although if you had a card and you didn't have a car, that card would be eligible for any car you're in. So if you're a teenager and you're out with your friends a lot, have your mom get you a AAA card, because it actually will help you in a pinch, even in someone else's car. So it does help. But I got tickets to Disneyland for a lot less money. I mean, they have discounts from all over California. At least the California AAA did. But what I'm talking about tonight is AAA of a different nature. Heaven's AAA. I'm calling it the Angel Automobile Assistance Club. I have 2 stories, and they're both like, I don't know. I mean, they should have curled my hair. My hair is still straight, so I can't say these stories will curl your hair, but I mean, these stories they'll at least curl your toes. Okay, so the first story is something that actually happened to my mother and my grandmother. My grandmother didn't have like failing or ailing health. She was actually pretty healthy, but she got to the point where she needed someone to kind of be around just in case. So my mom moved in with her. My mom and stepdad, they moved in with her. And my mom was always helping her with groceries. I mean, and like several times a month, my mom would go down to help my grandma with groceries. My grandma lived in Huntington Beach, and she was super proud of the fact that she lived in Surf City, even though she never even went to the beach, and she never hardly went out in the sun. She was always covering herself up because she had very fair skin. She was Irish, and it was just one of those things, they adopted me, but I looked just like them. And I think if I ever had done a genetic test, that I would find out that I was really related to them. I think I was maybe cousins or something, because it was just, we're all so close. And both my mom and grandmother have passed away. And this is on my Fox family, from my Fox family. And my grandpa, he was also Irish and Cherokee. So I don't know. I mean, I have a lot in common with these people, even though they adopted me. And technically, we shouldn't have had anything in common, but we ended up having a lot. Lot of love, great people. And so my mom and grandma had gone to the store. They had always been shopping there for since I was a kid. It was a store called Lucky's, and Lucky's was taken over by Albertsons in that part of Huntington Beach. And so they were out shopping in Albertsons, And my grandma knew the manager. This is like a really off-the-wall story. I'll tell it really, really quick. My grandmother knew the manager of Albertsons, and she would always shop at that one because he was at that one more often than not, because that was like his home store. But he was like the regional manager or something, and he went around to different stores to help people. Well, they ended up doing an ad campaign in Southern California, and he talked about how, and their ad thing was, "This is your store," right? And my grandma said she always felt safe there. She always felt good there. The manager was such a good man. And then he started being on the commercials. I thought he was an actor. I'm like, God, that actor, he's handsome and he's an older guy, but there's a trustworthy appearance to his face. Like, they really got the actor correct in this, in this ad. Well, I found out right after the Northridge earthquake. I lived across the street from an Albertsons in Northridge, and I had no food. I had a big vat of popcorn I had made for myself the night before, like about 2 a.m, and 4 a.m. is when the earthquake hit, and I lived on top of the epicenter. So no water for weeks, no power for weeks. Like, literally we were starving. A car had gone up and down, literally lifted off the ground and landed on a nail and popped my tire. So there was literally nowhere to go. And all the gas stations were closed because the pumps were all broken or unsafe, because the earthquake was pretty gnarly. And I went across the street to Albertsons because my roommates were like, hey, they're giving away free food at Albertsons. Whatever they can get to and get out the door, they're just going to give everything in the store away for free to people. And this man handed me, this famous man now, he's famous from the ad campaign, who knew my grandmother from Huntington Beach, which is like in a whole nother county. It's like, I don't know, maybe 100 miles away or something. I don't honestly know. Maybe it's like 70 miles away. But this man handed me a carrot cake, and that saved my life for, like, I don't know. I mean, I made it last like maybe 7 to 10 days until I could get my tire fixed, until I could, get my phone back online. And I didn't have a cell phone then, or a pager yet. I just had a landline. And when the landline came, I had to order pizza to stay alive. And that was a whole ordeal. I mean, I had to sweet talk them. I know this is not your region where you deliver pizza, but please, 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 I'll give you an extra $5. It was like so ridiculous. But anyway, I feel there's something about this Albertsons and about this manager specifically that, I don't know. To me, he's secretly an angel. He's maybe an earth angel. And he was there that day when this happened to my mother and grandmother. They had just said hi to him. They were just so thrilled to see him because now he's on TV, and so now he's famous. So, oh my gosh, he became a little bit of a celebrity. So my grandma and mom had just shopped for... See, the thing is, in the rest of the world, people shop every day or every couple days. So they'll go to the store and get 10 things or less usually. I noticed that people look at me weird when I go through the Super Maxi, which is a huge store here. It's kind of like an Albertsons. It's huge. And I will fill my cart almost to the brim with stuff, and then they don't see me for a month. Well, this is how I was raised to shop. I don't know, I think people do this in the States. We have bigger refrigerators. Some people have freezers they put in their garage, and they will fill it up with meat so that you don't have to waste gasoline, which it costs so much. And you don't want to get into an accident. There's so many accidents on the road that we just want to be safe, and we want to feel secure in our homes. Plus, there's so much crime. We're scared to death to leave our houses in a lot of the cities. So, the bigger cities. So we'll go to the store and we'll buy enough food for like the month. And then in a week or two, we'll go buy produce again, or maybe once a week we'll go buy apples or something. But like for real, we shop big shopping. So my mom and grandma had just done their big shopping, right? So $200 or $300 of the groceries 20 years ago. Imagine how much that would have been. I mean, now that's like 10 bags, but back then it's like 20 or 30 bags maybe, like from paper towels to Keebler cookies. I mean, they did every bit of shopping they could. And also in the United States, we have a lot of frozen food. We have canned food, but mostly frozen food is what my family, we would do, like frozen blueberries, frozen blackberries, frozen peaches. We would always do, because it was always flash frozen without sugar. That's what we were always looking for. It was like fresh and then immediately frozen. So especially in the winter when you can't get the big amount of fruit. So they did their big shopping. They always had to go together because they both had to carry the groceries, and you only have so much time from the moment you get all the frozen stuff into the cart, and then you got to stand in the shortest line, and usually all the lines are huge. And they were shopping in the late afternoon. The sun was going down. They didn't want to get home before dark. After dark. They have to get home before dark because that's safer, because my grandmother lived on a corner. And even though for the most part at that time it was a pretty safe neighborhood, she had been robbed a couple times. One time she grabbed a gun that my grandpa had and chased the crook out of the house at 6 o'clock in the morning. So having this stuff in her mind, it was like kind of, like I got to get home before dark. I got to get this stuff in the freezer before it spoils. We just spent like a fixed, we are on a fixed income. We just combined our money to spend like $250 on food. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous, right? And so it was just, kind of like you get that frozen stuff in your cart. Now it's a race against the clock to get home on time. So you didn't just waste all your money and all your time doing this, right? So they get all their stuff. They got it out there like, cool. I don't think that it's affected. The ice cream is fine. The frozen stuff is good. They stopped and said hey to the manager for a few minutes. They get out to the car, and their hearts immediately sunk. Oh my God. The tire in the back on the driver's hand side was flat as a pancake. There was no air in that tire at all. And they're like, oh no, it looks like we just ran over a nail. So now my grandmother, who's up there in age, my mom, who was, I think at that time, she was like in her 50s or 60s. So, I mean, people that, and they were dressed nice because, see, in my family also, it is an event to go to the store, and you never know who you're going to meet. So you have to do full hair and makeup, and you got to wear nice clothes and look presentable. My grandma would always say, well, you never know who's going to discover you. So I had that mindset growing up that maybe, just maybe, I might be discovered at the grocery store. So I always have to have lipstick on, and I always have to have jewelry on, and I always have to look sexy or hot or cute, depending on what age. When I was little, I have to look cute and clean. And then when I was, in my teenage, you got to look sexy because maybe you'll be the next starlet. Hollywood's around the corner. You never know. So this was like the thing. This was the thing. So they were both dressed in nice clothes. They both had their hair done, their makeup. They even had perfume. They had lipstick. You know what I mean? And now they have to change a tire with frozen food, the sun going down. They could barely see. There's like an hour between the moment in which the sun sets and the lights actually go on in the street and in the parking lot. So now they're at the point where they're not going to be able to see very much. Now they got to get the spare tire out of the trunk, and they've got to replace it. And they're like, are you freaking kidding me right now? They had to get the jack out. They're like, It's just like, first world problems, I know. But at the same time, it's my mom, it's my grandma. And it's like, to hear about the story later, I was just, my heart sunk. I'm like, oh my God. And they felt kind of embarrassed. They didn't want to go back and tell the manager. And they were stuck for a minute in reminding you that this is before anyone ever had cell phones. I mean, people didn't even quite have pagers when this happened. So it was one of those, do we have, a dime in our purse or a quarter in our purse to go use the payphone? Because there were payphones still on every corner. Or do we go back and beg the manager to let us use the Albertsons phone? It was just like, what do we do? So my mom and grandma sat there for a minute and they're like, well, what do we do? Well, let's get the spare tire out. And then we got to put the other tire back in, and now it's not going to fit correctly. So where do the groceries go? Okay, well, let's put the groceries in the back. So my mom started to put the groceries in the back, and my grandma says, I think I'm going to go in and ask for change and then use the payphone to call AAA. I think that's how I'm going to do it. So my mom was in the, towards the back of the car, putting the groceries in to the back seat instead of the trunk. And then my grandma went in and she started to go towards the door, and she saw the manager and she was so embarrassed. She's like, oh my God. And she just came back for a minute to ask my mom, I think maybe just hold my purse while I bring only $1 or something. She was kind of frazzled because that was like too much, So she just came back, and a man walked up immediately and he said, can I help you ladies? And he was wearing a nice pair of shoes and nice slacks and kind of like a button-up shirt with a tie, a white shirt with a tie. And my grandma remembered later that he looked rather crisp and fresh. Like his shirt was really fresh. Like he'd just gotten it ironed, and he looked good. He smelled good. He was handsome, and he had it was towards the end of the day, and usually men have 5 o'clock shadow on their face, but he looked freshly shaven. And he had a really nice jacket on. It wasn't a suit coat, but just like a, if I say members only, from the 80s kind of jacket on. But it was like a brand new kind of jacket like that, like a windbreaker that was like kind of a tan, but a nice upper scale. So anyway, so my grandma trusted him, and she didn't trust anybody. My grandpa had died when I was 14, and she just did not trust men. She never dated men. She remained faithful to my grandpa from the day they met until the day she died. And I love her for that. I admire that. I myself would not be able to do that. Like living like for 30 years without somebody it would be impossible for me. So, for her, for that, she was in that generation that's just what you do. But I might tell you a story another day. I tried to set her up with a Native American man I know from the Cherokee Apache tribe, but that's for another day. But she So she trusted this guy, and she said, okay, fine, let's go in my trunk. And she got the jack out, she got the spare, and thank God the spare wasn't bald. A lot of people have a spare tire in their trunk that's like a bald tire. They hope to God they never use it because it's dangerous. Or the spare might also be deflated, which is also dangerous. But thank God my grandma had it all together, at least, enough to fix it till she could get the next day to a tire store to buy a new tire. But this guy changed the tire, and my grandma just was like, oh, thank God. And something about AAA, even though they're an excellent roadside assistance, there's never enough tow trucks to go around, and it can take, well, usually an hour to 90 minutes, but sometimes it can take up to 3 hours. Like if you're stuck in like frickin' the Mojave Desert, that's 3 hours easy, because it's the drive time plus. It's like ridiculous. So that's why when I said her heart sank, because she's like, oh man, all this frozen food, the tire, and now we can't see and the sun's going down, which also makes it more dangerous. So all these factors combined, and then this beautiful man, this sweet, loving soul, came up and changed her tire. Just so pleasant. He was so sweet. He was done in like 10 minutes, and he put the old tire in the trunk. He did everything for her. And she said, I have wipes in the car to wipe your hands. And he goes, oh, don't bother. And he just kind of, kind of slapped his hands together. And she thought that was odd. His hands were perfectly clean. And then she's like, you know what? I got a little something for you, for your time. Thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. And my grandma turned in her front seat, and her door was open for the front seat of her car. She was the driver. She was going to drive. And so she opened her purse. It was right there in the front seat. Right in her wallet, she had a $5 bill, and her wallet was open. She hadn't even thought to close her wallet or her purse because she was so distraught when she got out and she saw that. So she literally, like, hold on a minute, turned and reached her hand into her purse and into her wallet, grabbed a crisp $5 bill, and turned back around, and the man had vanished. Completely gone. Totally disappeared. And she said, he had such a smile, and he had, like, when he smiled, like, his eyes just sparkled with so much light. And she kept thinking, boo, he's a handsome man, And she trusted him, and she was right to, because guess what? They looked all over the parking lot. They looked inside the store. They couldn't find this guy nowhere. He was gone. I mean, there was heavy traffic out on the street because now the sun's going down. That's the other thing in Huntington Beach. When people get off work at McDonnell Douglas, it's over. The traffic is huge. I mean, it takes double the time to get anywhere. And everyone travels by streets there. I mean, there is a freeway, but in that part where they were living, everyone traveled by street. So this guy just disappeared. And even though it was still kind of a hot day, it was California, my grandma got the chills, and she was just like, whoa. And she says to my mom's name is Myrna, and she's like, Myrna? And my mom's like, yeah, babe. She always call her one babe. Yeah, babe. And my grandma said, where did that guy go? And she goes, well, he's just right. Oh my God, he's gone. My mom noticed it too. She started looking around, and they were both like perplexed. So that night, my mom called me. She said, I have a story to tell you. And she told me what I just told you from her perspective. And she said, I know he was an angel. She says, Elena, I swear to God, this guy was an angel. He wasn't a human man. He never asked for anything in return. And there are some nice guys out there. There's plenty of nice guys to go around. But she said, but he disappeared. That was the weird thing. And his hands didn't get dirty. His clothes didn't get dirty. And then my grandma was in the other room making dinner when my mom told me the story. And she says, it's your turn to talk to the kid. They used to call me the kid. So my grandma gets on the phone, and she's like, all right, kid, what's up? And I'm like, well, how was your day? And she said, we met an angel today. And she told me blow by blow description, exactly what my mom just had told me. Exactly what I just told you guys. They met an angel, guys, in front of Albertsons that I think might be run by another angel. He's an earth angel for sure. There's something magical about Albertsons, at least the two that I knew about. But there's something about it. I don't know. I mean, there's just something about this story that always gave me the chills, even in the hottest of days in the summertime. And I have a second story for you. I was waiting to be paid from my work, And my girlfriend called me and she said, I want to see you. Can you come over tonight? And I'm like, well, sure. I'm running a little low on gas, so I'm going to have to take the freeway and I'm going to have to borrow $5 from you and, to get gas on the way home so that I have enough to get to work tomorrow because tomorrow's payday. And she's like, no problem, honey. I got you. Don't worry. And I had just introduced her to my other friend who I lovingly referred to as my brother, Anthony. And so I get there to her house and she said, you know what? My daughter had an emergency and she had to take her kid to like an urgent care. So I'm sitting there with my friend, Anthony, in my other friend's, Sue's house. And she had left me like $5. And I'm like, well, thank God, because I need to be able to get home and I'll pay her back when I get paid at work. And I just hung out with him and I think we had a beer. So it was like kind of late. And I'm like, oh, I'm feeling it. I don't want to get caught like drunk driving, even though I'm not drunk. I don't trust highway patrol or cops like to do the right thing when it comes to the BS parts of life, like if there's a little actual emergency, yeah, those are the guys I would run to. But usually with the little petty crap, in LA, my husband at that time had done a rolling stop on a completely empty street, and the cops harassed us for 4 hours because he had a tattoo on his head. And he's like, I have a tattoo on my head because I went bald and it looks like hair. It was a dragon, but, he's like, if I get enough money, I'll, cover my whole head and it'll look like hair. And they just, it was, so I didn't trust cops. And I'm like, it's like the last thing I want to have to deal with, right? If I run out of gas on the freeway or on the street on the way home. But my friend had left me the gas money and then she had to take off and she was like gone for a couple hours. And I was just like, you know what, Tony, I don't think she's going to come back and I got to go to work in the morning. So, I love you and tell her I love her. I'll pay her back tomorrow and I got to get. The traffic on the freeway is gone. And that's in LA. It's always a concern. People that are wealthy in LA will have 2 or 3 houses within just a few miles of each other because depending on where you are in the city, if the traffic's bad, it's easier to drive 10 minutes than to get on the freeway, and to go 10 miles takes 3 hours, and it's just a pain in the butt, especially if you're like a movie star or you're like on the news or on the radio or something. The very wealthy people, that's what they do. You have to, because if you're working 16-hour days and you can't make it to, then you get a reputation and no one wants to work with you. And it's just a big thing, and I was poor. So I just lived, in a rented house next to an apartment building, in like kind of a sketchy neighborhood, So I was just like, I just need to get home and try to avoid the gangs on the way home and avoid the cops and get to a gas station on time. And the gas station near my friend's house was closed, like for repairs or something. So literally between her house and my house, the only choice was right off of my freeway on the way to my house. There was a gas station. And my tank showed that I had enough. I was going to be okay, thank God. Cutting it close, the way you do when you're really young and you don't plan things ahead. So I get off the freeway and I was hoping to hit the green light. The light was red. I'm like, oh crap, So I'm waiting at the red light going, I might be in trouble here. And I was. The minute the light turned green and I coasted on fumes, okay? And you have to understand that there are 270 Mexican American gangs, and some are like cartel Mexican gangs that are like there illegally in the valley. So like in that general vicinity where I was, there was probably 10 gangs or something. And the week before, I had a long conversation with a gangbanger covered in tattoos. He had like the tear tattoos on his eyes for his homies that died, and then the ones on his hand for the homies, the enemies he killed. I mean, he had been in jail. He was telling me about how he was addicted to heroin and he needed help. I mean, these were the kind of people that you run into in the middle of the night at the gas station, right? And I mean, I'm not judging anybody, but, when you're 20 and you're a young woman and you're pretty and you're skinny and you can't fight worth crap, and, and everyone has guns and bullets are flying everywhere, anywhere. Anyway, it's LA County. It's just, there's a lot of tension and stress in Southern California. And so I was just like, oh crap, like I'm probably going to get robbed and they're not going to get anything. I don't even have money, but they're going to take my purse. I think I was wearing like maybe a gold necklace. I'm like, they're going to take my necklace. Like, I was worried, like, God, dude, this is going to suck, man. So I just like praying. The only thing I have is a wing and a prayer and the fumes in my car. And I'm hoping if I could just coast enough up the steep driveway into the gas station and coast right over to the gas pump, then I can pump the gas, with the $5 and have just enough to get home and to work the next day and from work to the nearest gas station. I mean, this is in LA when you're like, 25 or whatever. This is living life on the edge, right? And I was like out of money because we had just paid our rent, and my husband and I, at the time, my first husband, we shared responsibilities. So it was like, back then, it was like $850, so $450 for rent, and then plus probably double that for the bills. It was, it was just kind of much. So anyway, I coasted all the way from the light, like super slow. People are honking their horns and flipping me off and threatening my life because how dare I coast on fumes in LA? And so I'm like pulling up into the driveway, and it was so steep, my car did not freaking make it. And I started to roll backwards into traffic, and I knew that I'm sunk. I'm in trouble. I'm seriously in trouble here. And I was like, God, oh God, oh God, please, please, please help me. Please help me. This is not the safest neighborhood. In fact, this is a very dangerous neighborhood. I'm very, very scared right now. Please, please send angels, do whatever it takes. Just help me. I'm so scared. I was terrified. So out of nowhere, these tall, beautiful, blonde Slavic men, tall, skinny, extremely pale Slavic men, and they all had like diamond earrings, like gold diamond earrings in their ears, and they had gold necklaces on, and they had white hoodies and white track pants, and but weirdly, their shirts were like crisp white linen shirts that were buttoned up and buttoned all the way to the top. And I think that they had black ties on and maybe tennis shoes, but white tennis shoes. So they were like really pale men with all white on. And they looked like ghosts. And I thought they were like a Russian gang or Russian mafia or cartel, but from the Slavic side of things. And I'm like, this is a weird twist, especially for this neighborhood. And I'm like, oh, the F word came out of my mouth. I'm like, oh, not now. Not effing now. No effing way, not effing now. These guys, are you effing kidding me right now? Now I'm going to be robbed or raped or killed or God knows what by the frickin' Russian mafia. These tall, super overly handsome Slavic men, And I'm like, oh God, oh God. And they all approached my car from 4 different directions. And I'm like, oh my God. they're going to kill me. They're going to go in my car. Did I even lock my doors? I started to panic. And you know what, guys? They pushed my car to the gas pump. They pushed my car to the gas pump. They did not look me in the eye. They did not say a word. They did their job of pushing my car to the gas pump. And then a really, really nice Mercedes, black Mercedes, rolled up with the black tinted windows, the way I have seen Russian mafia drive, rolled right up on the street, stopped right where they were, and they all ran to the car and they opened the doors, and they, without saying a word, without looking at me, and I'm like, thanks, oh my God, thank you, guys just saved my life, thank you, you know, I'm like screaming after them. Now suddenly I'm friendly with them because they helped me and not, you know, killed me or robbed me, right? And I'm like feeling so guilty, you know, why did I think that? But I was scared to death before this happened. So, you know, your mindset gets in a certain way in these situations of danger. And two of them ran around the other side. Two of them ran to this side closest to me. I couldn't see the driver, but I saw that he also had a white tracksuit on. And one guy got into the front passengers. Two guys got into the back. One had to slide over on, you know, the back door behind the passengers. So one guy got in, slid over, the other guy got in, shut the door, and the other guy ran around the car from the front and got into the other side of the back. So they got in and the tires screeched and they just took off. And I was like, oh my God, the Russian mafia just freaking helped me. And they didn't say a word. Maybe they don't even speak English. They're like freshly here for a mission, and they saved my butt. And I even asked, and I was just like, I don't know where they came from, because the car that they got into was not there. There was no cars on the road. I had waited long enough at night so that no one was on the road so that I could get to the gas station. I'm like super planning ahead because I had not planned ahead money-wise. So I'm like, that was really freaking weird, right? So I get up to the place where you pay, because you got to pay first before you could pump your gas, and then they allow how much gas to go through the hose from what you've paid for. So I went up there to the guy, and I'm like, so, and the guy was just like, he was like super pale and sickly looking, and like he was surrounded by green walls, which are making his skin look even greener and sicker. And he just looked like such a blah person, like, you know, whatever. But when I first pulled up and I first got out of the car, I noticed he was looking at me. And I went over there and I'm like, that was pretty crazy, right? Because I noticed he'd been noticing me. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, well, you know, the four guys that were all like 6'2" to 6'4", they were super tall, they were super skinny, and they were all wearing white tracksuits with white shoes. I mean, it was freaking crazy, right? That they all had the same freaking outfit on. Like, that's like pretty weird. And I'm like, so, you know, those guys that just helped me. He goes, what guys? What are you talking about? I go, did you just see me pull up to the pump? And he said, yeah. I go, well, the four guys that were pushing my car. And he's like, there were no men. There was nobody there. What are you talking about? Are you on drugs? And I'm like, no. I mean, I had a beer earlier, but no. And he's like, no, there was nobody there. I'm like, they ran to the black Mercedes and took off. It squealed its tires. It was super loud. You didn't hear that? And he said, no, lady. Is that your car there? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, at that pump there? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, how much gas do you want? I'm like, fine, whatever. Gave him the $5 and, he was just his angsty LA self, like a lot of people get in LA because everyone's angry in LA, especially when it's hot, even when it's cold, even when it's not, people just have that angsty vibe. And, back in those days, it was right after the earthquake. So it was like maybe 2 or 3 years after the earthquake. No, it was 4 years. It's like, so it's like no, because I was in hypnosis school then. So 1997, I would have to say. So everyone's still kind of having that angsty vibe. I don't know what it's like there. I haven't been there in a long time. But this guy, the only witness that would have seen the 4 gangster Russian dudes, like push, like they appeared out of nowhere in the street, pushed me up into the pump where I needed to be. I think it was pump number 7, which is God's number. And then they get in that car and they just take off like a flash. And this guy didn't see them. You guys, I swear to God, they were 4 angels. And the minute I prayed and shut my eyes and opened my eyes and there they were angels. They did not look at me. They acted the same. They acted in unison. This is going to be a really weird comparison, but if you guys ever saw the 2 brothers that looked almost like twins on Breaking Bad, and they dressed kind of the same and they walk the same and their mannerisms are exactly the same, like they're freaking robots, and they carry out a task and they don't speak and they look ahead and they don't make eye contact with each other, and that's how these guys were. That's how they were. They didn't speak. They didn't look at me. They didn't smile. They didn't frown. They were like Russian mafia or Slavic type people. I mean, the outfits were very expensive looking. Really expensive. And all white. And they just took off. I mean, it was like crazy. And then they would just... And they didn't, and I'm like, haven't you been watching the monitors? He's like, no, I was watching you. You were driving awfully slow. What's going on? I'm like, I just ran out of gas. I was on fumes. Those 4 guys had to help me push the car. And he's like, no one was there. He's like, I thought you were high. I was getting worried. I thought I was going to have to call the cops on you. And I'm like, oh, no. I was running on fumes. I'm not high. I'm just poor. Back then I was just like, dude. So I saw angels. So I think that there are legions of angels out there that answer people that are in serious distress, that don't have another way or means in which to get help in that moment. And they'll be in a dangerous situation if they don't get help in that moment. And I've had a lot of other instances. I have one that I'll tell you someday. That's a whole nother thing. But I don't know. I mean, I've been stuck in the middle of the desert where like there's skeletons of dead people in cars because no one is there. And then I've been helped randomly out of nowhere by people. Like people suddenly decided to take a turn going out desert womping in their, vehicles and smashing through the sand for fun. And then, we decided to take this route and we never go over here. We just had a feeling, stuff like that. But this was something supernatural. It was extraordinary in both my mother and grandmother's story and in my story. The people disappeared right after. Well, my guys took off in a car and I went to talk to the guy and I turned back around. The car was gone. I just assumed that they had driven super fast. The guy said that there was no one on the monitors. He had cameras all over that place. You have to. And the guy was sitting behind 4 inches of bulletproof glass. I mean, super paranoid guy, angsty guy, literally stuck in a cage for 8 hours of his shift every night. Always scared of mafia types. So you'd think that his dander would have gone up. Like his hair would have stood on the back of his neck, stood up with fear at seeing a freaking gang show up out of nowhere. What do they want? I was telling him, I was so scared of those guys at first, and they helped me. And he's like, I literally don't know what you're talking about. No one was there. So those are my AAA stories. The Angel Assistance, the Angel Automobile Assistance Program of Heaven. You can deploy it anytime, day or night. If you are in trouble with your car or in any other way, just ask. Please send angels. Please, God, send angels, And when you ask with a pure heart and that desperate, like, I could be in trouble, serious trouble here, God will deploy the angels for you. I believe it wholeheartedly because I lived it. I hope that this was an inspirational and fun one for you guys. I love you all very much. Thank you for listening. If you guys have any angel stories you'd like to tell me, please get in touch with me. Anchor.fm/metaphysical. And please get in touch with me, or you could go to the Facebook Metaphysical Soul Speak page, or write me with the @ Metaphysical Soul on Facebook. That will get to me. Angel stories are so interesting. So interesting. We are never alone in this universe. We're always loved and provided for from the unseen forces and the supernatural beings that love us, that literally live in just a couple dimensions above us. And they are always around us. Always when we need their help. And I think my stories proved that, but you have to decide for yourself if they're real or not. I assure you from my end, they are absolutely 100% true. I mean, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of stories like this from other people. I used to have a bunch of angel books. I had one whole shelf full of angel books. I used to have probably 30 books on this topic. Because after what had happened to me, I was so fascinated by it. So, all right, guys, I'm going to go to bed, hang out with my kid a little bit, maybe. First, watch a very calm and beautiful show that will lift and inspire me, because I can't watch my other shows I used to watch. Changing my vibes, But I love each and every one of you. Whether I know you or don't know you from this level, I know you from heaven. We are all one. We've all met before. So thank you. Thank you for being here, spending the time with me, listening to my show. Now I am signing off with peace and joy and the high vibes of the holy fifth dimension. Until next time. Metaphysical Soul Speak is run on sponsors and listener support. This means listeners like you. If you are so inclined to support my efforts and my little podcast, please visit me at anchor.fm/metaphysical and pledge an amount of your choosing today. Thank you.